What does that first meeting with Welcome Home Financial Partners actually look like? Thanks for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart of Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find online at welcomehomefp.com. Made it real easy for you. It's there in the podcast description. You can click the link. It'll take you right to the page. Set up a time to speak with them. Find out more about Ralph, Tim, and Scott and the entire team. welcomehomefp.com. Speaking of, gentlemen, glad to be with you. How are you today?
Very good. Always a pleasure, sir.
We appreciate you guys taking the time to spend with the listeners here on this episode. You know, we talked in a previous episode, we've spoken about not wanting to sit around and watch Netflix every day for the rest of your life. I could barely do it for like half a day before I start getting stir crazy. But I do want to start by talking about a show on Netflix that's offering an intervention for people having money troubles. It's called How to Get Rich. It is hosted by a personal finance advisor and author, Ramit Sethi. And he explains to Morningstar the one thing he doesn't bring to first meetings with clients.
People always think that I'm going to walk in and hand them some magical budget that's going to solve all their financial problems. I go, do you even want that? They go, yes. I go, really? When was the last time you used a budget? They go, in 1998, we used it for 3 months. I go, you don't even like budgets. So why do you want me to come in and give you a budget? That sucks. But you know, it's interesting where this idea comes from. The financial industry talks like this. They'll say phrases, let's give people the tools and the information to make the right decisions. People aren't robots. They don't use information alone to make decisions.
And I read a study recently, guys, where people say they actually hate the term budgeting because it's kind of like dieting. It implies having to do without or having to struggle, in the process. When you have that first meeting with a new client, do you talk about budget or do you start with something else?
Well, there's a lot of things that we go through in the first meeting, right? Budget's a very important piece of it. So I don't necessarily agree with the fact that, you don't give people tools to do their job. I think it's very important to give people to do their job. And they're not robots, but everybody's situation is going to be different. So, whatever tools we offer to one client might be different than the next client. So it's very important. The way our retirement roadmap process looks like is the first meeting was we sit down, we take a look at their statements, we take a look at their income, Social Security estimates. There's a lot of things that go into it, but we're gathering up the information to create this roadmap. The second meeting, we'll sit down with them and we'll take a look at the roadmap together and maybe any kind of recommendations or tweaks that they currently need. So a lot of folks, they have no idea what they're even spending on Netflix. Let's bring Netflix back up, right? We're all victims of the subscriptions, right? We don't have cable, but cable's going to cost you, I don't know, $100, $125 a month, but yet we're still paying over $200 in subscriptions. So budget is very crucial when it comes to the roadmap because we talk about it all the time is retirement's about your income. It's not necessarily about chasing that magic number. And if you have no idea what income you need for your lifestyle, then how do we begin this process? So it's very important. And I will admit that that's probably the last thing people want to do is budget. They don't want to take a serious dive into what they're spending monthly on X, Y, and Z. But it's a very important thing to take a look at.
What I would say to most people, what I start with is, what are your goals?
Okay.
What are you trying to accomplish? Part of the process will be what I call cash flow analysis. You might call it budget, but I call it cash flow because it's all about where's your money going? Where is it coming from? How's it going out? But that's part of the process. It's not going to be the first thing that you come in, we're going to slide a piece of paper across the desk at you and say, here's your magic bullet here that you can follow. That's the thing that you need to understand. Our process is, let's get to understand what you're trying to do. Let us figure out where you are now. And then the third is, let us make recommendations. You may be on track. You may be doing everything right, or we may be able to improve your roadmap, whatever you want to call it, your process to get you where you want to go. But to start with a budget and push it across the room, no, that's not how we start. It's trying to understand what your goals are, what your aspiration is. You may have a kid that may have some issues health-wise that you're going to have to plan for them later down the road. And that's not in most people's budget, but that may be part of your plan. And your goal is to, hey, I want to make sure my child who cannot fend for themselves because of medical or whatever the reason is taken care of. That's a completely different question or answer than somebody coming in that's got $10 million and they got kids that don't appreciate a thing that you do for them. So those are just issues that we sit down with people at the very beginning, get to understand you and what you want to do.
We recorded a show a while back, and I think, Chris, you led into the show talking about we're going to use words that people don't like or scary words or whatever. And I think the word budget can be a scary word for people. Just that word in and of itself can bring people to a hard stop. So I've gotten to the point when I'm sitting down with people and what Ralph and Tim have described as our process, very, very true. We're going to sit down, we're going to get to know you. We're then going to compile information and present you with a roadmap for what your retirement years will look like. But I have gotten completely away from the word budget when we're gathering the information.
Okay.
When we're gathering the information, I ask them for what are your expenses? Tell me, and I tell every single client this. The first thing that any financial professional needs to remember and needs to use as their mantra is this is your money. You do with your money what you want. It's not my money. It's not Welcome Home's money. It's your money. You live your lifestyle. So tell me what your expenses are. And what I've found is when I tell people, hey, let's go through this expense list rather than this budget, they're going to be a lot more transparent with me. They're actually going to tell me what they're spending. If you give people the word budget, they're going to, oh, well, we don't actually do. And then you get to the end of it and they go, oh, we actually spend about $1,000 more a month than that. Well, why didn't you tell me the truth? So I can't help you. We can't help you if you aren't transparent with us. So I use the word expense sheet. And then when we do present the roadmap, if we're running a deficit, if we are running a shortfall and we're using credit cards or something, then we're going to talk about budgeting. We're going to talk about, hey, what can we roll back expense-wise to put you where you need to be? But I agree with Ramit that maybe budget's not the right word. Let's talk about what your expenses actually are. And then if we do need to roll them back and do a budget for you, we can do that.
But it is quite funny because I'd say the majority of folks that come in to see us, they have never taken a look at cash flow analysis or expenses or a budget, whatever you want to chalk it up to be. But then we have people on the other side of the coin that have their own spreadsheets. I actually had a guy a few weeks ago who gave me a thumb drive with all of his information going back to 1993. So there's still a lot of folks out there that have a good grasp on what they're doing. They want help as far as, hey, I know I make really good income right now. How can I continue that into retirement? Because Social Security is up in the air. I don't get a pension. My spouse never worked. We're relying on me. Right. So that's where the process comes in of we know some tools and techniques. I know we weren't supposed to say tools again, but we've got some techniques that we can use for retirement income. But the biggest part of that is we have to know what income we need.
I haven't ever gotten a thumb drive, but Tim, you saw this. I did get a PowerPoint presentation, a slide deck of somebody's expenses. I thought that was quite interesting. Oh, you put together a PowerPoint of what you spend.
Kind of like what Tim was saying, people come in with spreadsheets and they say they just want kind of a second opinion. But I had one gentleman that came in that had over $7.5 million. And, I said, listen, you've done a fairly good job. What are you looking for? And he said, well, it's really not about for me. He said, I was watching your television program, and which I've done over the last 3 to 5 years. But my wife was sitting there and all of a sudden she goes, are we going to be okay? Are we going to be able to retire in the way we want? Now he's 70 years old, about to go into assisted living. So that was one of the issues that we were talking about. I told her that, hey, you've got more money now than you'll ever be able to spend the rest of your life. And she goes, well, you've done all this. When you're not here, how do I know what I need to do? And he said, that was a light bulb moment for me. And that's why I'm here. I'm looking for somebody that can help my wife when I'm no longer able to do it. So that's some of the other things that we talk to people about.
Yeah. And usually the folks that have done well and they've got the thumb drive from information back from 1993 or just their own spreadsheets, right? That's the big thing is most of their spouses, or in most cases, the spouses have never taken a look at anything and they don't necessarily have anything. So once that spouse moves on, the breadwinner, the person who's very detailed in their spreadsheet, what's the spouse supposed to do, right? So we always go back to the team approach is we're in this for the long haul. We've referred to it as being in a marriage. It's a team approach for retirement. if the spouse, breadwinner, whatever passes away, we are still here. We're going to help you. The plan's not going to change a whole lot, but just having the peace of mind and the comfort to know that there's somebody here to support you when the spouse is no longer around. It's huge.
Because it is a relationship, getting to retirement, through retirement, and beyond. If we're talking 20, 30 years in retirement. And so you want to make sure you guys do have that trust. You guys are on the same page. And bringing it back to the roadmap analogy, everyone is going to be starting from a different location. And truth be told, where they want to go in retirement is going to be a little bit different. But there are some things I think people want to pay as little in taxes as possible. They want to make sure they don't run out of money in their retirement. So the destination is slightly different, but they're all kind of in the same area. But knowing where you are and how to get to where you want to be, that's why the roadmap analogy works so beautifully. That is why you guys do that. And when it comes to that first appointment, look, I think in any professional capacity, financial or otherwise, you should be wary of someone who is presenting you with a complete plan when you walk through the door. Aside from a restaurant, when they hand you a menu, that is the case because you do have a finite number of options there. But you don't want that cookie cutter approach, especially when it comes to your financial planning, because that is not going to be acting in your best interest. That is a one size fits all strategy, and we all know how those rarely fit anybody at all. And so it is a process. It is, going to take, perhaps subsequent meetings to get to know you, figure out how to get to where you want to be in retirement. But it is certainly worth the time, I think, when it comes to planning for the next 20, 30 years, however long you're going to be in retirement, both you and your spouse. And it's as simple as reaching out and setting up a time to speak with Welcome Home Financial Partners. Maybe it is attending one of their First Friday events. Maybe it is just skipping the line and just coming in and speaking with them directly. You could do so by going to welcomehomefp.com. It is right there in the podcast description. The link will take you right to the website and start that planning process. Start beginning that retirement roadmap to get where you want to be in retirement. Want to thank you for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short, Tim Short, and Scott Earhart of Welcome Home Financial Partners. Always appreciate you taking the time. Gentlemen, appreciate you guys taking the time. Hope you have a great week ahead as well. And as we wrap up, want to leave you with the final word.
Yes, thanks, Chris. So we appreciate your time as well. But it's very important to know that this is a process and this is a team approach. The first meeting, a lot of folks we've heard before, they get stressed out, they're nervous, they want to cancel, but they come in and they feel very comfortable. So if you are looking to have a roadmap designed for you, or you just want the team approach when it comes to retirement, feel free to reach out and attend one of our events. We'd love to hear from you, and we do appreciate your time, and thanks for listening.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.